about 5 years ago, and it fascinated me, it intrigued me, and so I thought I'd look into it. I started meeting people, talking to people, reading books, and I realized that that was the one of the key things that I could do to contribute to the people. And so I began a little bit of counseling, and I began to give speeches and across India, and I got a very warm response. So basically, I realized that the problem that we have is a lack of awareness and education on the subject matter. Very few people know about emotional intelligence. What is it? Why is it important? And how to utilize it? So my task is really, it's a challenge because it's so hard to educate people when they don't know what this is about, and to get their attention and have them participate and then ultimately utilize the knowledge base. So I'll begin basically by talking about emotional intelligence. What is it? It's basically our common sense in a way, and we all have it, but we don't realize it, we don't use it. The reason being that we don't know what it is. We don't know that our EQ or emotional quotient is many, many times more important and valuable than our intelligent quotient. We don't know, for example, that our EQ uh, grows with us exponentially, whereas our IQ remains constant most of our lives. So the main areas that I'm involved in presently are education and in psychotherapy. I was surprised to find that a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists in India are totally, they're not, that EI, emotional intelligence, was not a part of their curriculum when they were going to school and getting their 6-year PhD degrees. Hello, Dr. Chadha, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a vast network of people on LinkedIn, and surprisingly, almost half of them are psychotherapists, which is very reassuring to know because emotional intelligence is the key knowledge that they need to have in order to do proper counseling. That, of course, is in addition to the education space. Today, very few school counselors have any understanding of emotional intelligence. They don't know that if a child is not emotionally healthy, that they can never be academically successful. And neither do parents, neither do the principals, and so on and so forth. So I've spent quite a bit of time in the education space as well, and I see there's a tremendous need. Now the issue is, how do you know and measure your emotional intelligence? How do you know if you're high in it or low in it? And for that, there is a standard procedure. It's a EQ assessment, profiling, and evaluation test that anybody can take, and that has a very interesting algorithm, and that essentially scores your EI, your emotional intelligence. I highly recommend that because now you know what are your strengths and weaknesses. And without that, you really don't know. The parent, for example, if a child is unmanageable, the parent, the only recourse that they have is to take the child to a psychiatrist. Well, that's not really a good idea because these psychiatrists, they psychiatry is an excellent science, but it involves the dispensation of, of medicine, of pharmaceuticals, of prescription medication, which I'm not so sure is essential unless it's an acute case of, a mental health situation. So anyway, that being the case, I just want to also mention that our our parents, our teachers, our students should all learn the basic fundamentals of emotional intelligence, take a evaluation test. Now, once you have that test, then you know what are the strengths and weaknesses, as I mentioned. So any counseling that you do, whether and the parent can do the counseling too, can be done on the basis of that rather than guessing as to what is wrong with the child. So as a starter, that's where I'm at, and I'd like to continue on. AI has an escape velocity that is faster than the speed of light. What I mean by that is that once you begin to utilize emotional intelligence in your daily life, the learning curve is exponential. It goes very fast, and a lot of people are unaware, for example, that we have multiple intelligence. You know, aptitude, logic, memory, all these are 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 multiple intelligences within our emotional intelligence. So if we map out these multiple intelligences, we can zero in and know exactly what is going on inside our head. And so that is something that should be done again, and it will yield a tremendous benefit. Manish, do you want to turn on the slides now? Hello, Manish.
Yeah,
Do you want to turn on the PPT presentation, or do you want me?
uh, let me just see. Just give me a minute.
So I was continuing. AI is a great way of learning yourself, who you are, because if you go through the algorithms, you'll see that a lot of it is introspection, is learning about yourself, and so it's really it comes to play when you know uh, the what and the why of things. What is going on around your life? Why is it going on? AI is really a way it tells you how to think, not what to think. And in today's world of machine learning, artificial intelligence, computers, mobile phones, all those interfaces are basically are inhuman. EI is the differentiator, is the denominator to get the machine world or the computer world to have the empathy and compassion that we do as humans. This first slide is the front cover of my book, The Official Guide to Emotional Intelligence. It has received excellent reviews. I've just released it, and I encourage everybody to get a copy of it. I think that it will be a first step to understanding the subject matter, and then we go on further. Now, one of the purposes of this webinar is to give everybody, all the attendees, enough information and incentive to want to avail of our training and certification program that we have on emotional intelligence. And as you can see, the course structure has 4 modules and assignments and study material. And basically, it's 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. And we'll be starting that sometime late this month. So if you're interested, please do sign up for it. I assume, Manish, we have the platform for people to sign up. Is that correct?
Yes, we would have it by Monday or Tuesday up, and we would then inform everybody who might be interested.
Okay, that's great. So going on, AI actually teaches us to how to manage our successes, our failures in life, uh, and uh, and also uh, how to manage our emotions, basically. Now we can start from the beginning. What are emotions? Emotions are nothing but feelings that have turned into thoughts that have turned into emotions that basically requires some kind of action if needed, and which then result in a reaction. So it's a straight line function. A feeling becomes a thought, becomes an emotion, which makes us do something or the other, or say something or the other, which then results in somebody responding equally and accordingly. So that is what emotional, it is all about ourselves, the way we think, and excuse me, I just, okay, and it's a way of understanding yourself too. Emotional intelligence also forms our personal psychological safety network. We know what we know about ourselves, and we can protect ourselves in a way from encroachment by other people. Now, to be emotionally smart is not, it's not a big deal. It's not nuclear science. We just have to follow certain procedures to enhance our emotional intelligence. It's a way of upskilling our faculty. It's a way to be inclusive to our environment. And it also helps uncomplicate our mind, our thoughts, take all the cobwebs out of out of our mind, and make life simple and happy as it should be. Manishi, could you go to the next slide, please? Hello?
Yes,
Could you go to the next slide?
just give me a minute. EQ assessment?
Yes. I wonder if this is readable. Can anybody respond? Can you see the text on the slide, please? Can somebody tell me?
No,
Yes.
sir, it's not
Yeah,
visible.
Oh,
Text on the slide is visible.
oh, it is?
Yeah, identified personal thinking, EQ assessment.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
visible. We can read this. It's visible.
Oh, okay, okay. That's good. So just give me a second and go through that. You know, our emotional intelligence is influenced by the environment, the customs, and the social values that we live within. It's amazing how the outside world affects the way we think, and so it changes, it varies from city to city, from country to country. It's very interesting. It also is going to be, I believe, the next disruptor in the education system as we know it today. By disruptor, I mean that just the way we conduct our schools and colleges and classes and curriculum is all going to change because, as you may know, the UGC, the University Grants Commission, has just issued a directive to all schools and colleges, universities in India, basically telling them that they have to have at least one trained certified counselor in emotional intelligence, and that they must have at least one course in their curriculum directly teaching about emotional intelligence. So the handwriting is basically on the wall, and I'm glad that the government of India, under its new education policy, has decided to take a proactive stance, because otherwise these student counselors really have no clue, have no formal understanding of emotional intelligence. And again, I'm so happy to hear that the UGC is now mandating it across the country. So can we go to the next slide, please? Now, this is a group that I have formed on LinkedIn. It's called the Emotional Intelligence Alliance. please go to LinkedIn and look up Emotional Intelligence Alliance, and please join the group. Wikipedia, if you will, open source platform on emotional intelligence. Within 3.5 to 4 months, we have over 3,000 people from across the world that have joined the group. And if you see the daily posts on the group, you'll see a lot of activity, people contributing their thoughts, articles, videos, what have you. And pretty soon, I hope that this group will become one of the premier knowledge exchange platforms on the subject matter worldwide. So I'm very happy about this, and I think for all of us that want to promote this concept of EI, I think we needed a solid platform, a solid base where everybody could share whatever they wanted to freely, and hopefully very education-wise, very informative. So next slide, please, sir. Okay, this is my bio, which is just a repetition of what I said, just my background. I've been with Ernst & Young, the international consulting firm, for many years in Los Angeles, and I'm a member in various other organizations. So I guess we can move on from here. So basically, that's it. What I want to emphasize is that EI, emotional intelligence, will be based on experiential learning and not the textbook approach that we currently have. And it improves our level of competence. It strengthens the empathy neurons in our mind so that we can. It's all about empathy and compassion, really. And once we master that, then we'll see a tremendous change in our lives. And all I want to stress to everybody is that please use your good offices to make sure that parents and teachers and principals, they all include some serious direction and serious instruction on emotional intelligence in the schools and colleges throughout our country. In addition, I would encourage the people that set up the curriculum for advanced degrees in psychiatry and psychotherapy and psychology to also make this a part and parcel of their curriculum, because presently, at least in India, I'm not aware. I mean, there is obviously coverage on it, but it's not as determined as it should be. So that's.
Vasantji, if I can ask one thing, so how is emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, for that matter, different from intelligence quotient, IQ?
Oh, that's easy. The IQ is a numerical, quantitative measure of your logical cognitive capabilities. And so that is something that is pretty much constant all throughout your life, from the time you're born till you die, essentially. Your IQ hardly changes just by a few percent. EQ, on the other hand, your emotional quotient, develops exponentially from the time you're born, age 60 maybe. And so that is what the whole study or whole work we are doing is all about, because people don't know about what emotional intelligence comprises and how it can affect and benefit our daily life, anger management, fear, I mean, love, hate, all these things, all our emotions are part of this intelligence. And managing our emotions is the key thing. If we don't know how to manage our anger or our fear, then we are, we have our back against the wall. So the answer to the question is, it is imperative. It is imperative. In fact, EQ evaluation, your emotional quotient evaluation, is a standard part of any job application in the US and other countries. In India, very few companies even know about EQ evaluation, and so we have a long ways to go. The parent doesn't know about how to manage the emotions of the child. I mean, they know intrinsically, but really have not any kind of structured understanding by reading or viewing as to how they can manage a child that is unmanageable. I mean, going to a psychiatrist, as I said, is really the last resort. So I hope that answers that question. Anything else?
I'll open the floor to others. If anybody wants to ask a question, I would sort of encourage you. You can just raise your hand or unmute your mic and then ask the question.
So good evening. I'm first time attending your this webinar. I'm Hana Akhtar from Delhi Public School, Noida, and really nice to hear you and understand, especially the functioning of counselors and psychologists when we are dealing with young minds and especially in schools. Yes, that's a really we are struggling with the emotional quotient, and we do take student, and you know how the nursery admissions are, and children from very good families with high IQs, they come to our schools and to many prestigious schools, but managing their EQ later stages, it is becoming a challenge. And especially in this pandemic situation, we as counselors are facing a lot of problem, and probably doing some work, enhancing our skills will definitely help us all in the school, and especially with the young minds. I'm really delighted attending this webinar. Thank you so much. And one thing, sir, which I want to understand from you is that we have limited resources when we have to, assess emotional quotient. And you were talking about referrals to psychiatrists or doctors, because as counselors, yes, we have real difficulty. Even referring them to counselors is a big task for teachers. Still, in many schools we are facing this. When they come to us, we see lot of cases where the children really need medical interventions and maybe very professional interventions, but the scope of referring them to therapist and all, it becomes very difficult, and we have limited resource and we have to depend on the hospitals. We usually refer, keeping in mind a lot of things, we refer them to the hospitals. This is one thing which really needs to be worked on, because we need a lot of people, not only from the medical field, but from different fields, which you were just sharing, like in US, when the companies, they look into the emotional intelligence. I think we all need this in school setups also.
Yes, and I agree with you. The problem is, like you said, lack of resource. Okay. Now, the principals used to have a lot of authority and power when I was growing up. Today, yes, a principal cannot do anything without the approval of the owners or the administrator of the school. Now,
Yes, sir.
people at a much higher level have really little interest in the emotional well-being of the child. I'm sorry to say that. It's more become a money game. So unless there is direction from top management, the principal, even if they want to, are unable to do. Now, one more point here. It starts with the parent. The child spends 16 hours a day with the parent, 18 hours, and maybe 6 hours in school. Now the parent needs to be educated on the value proposition. The moment the parents realize, whether it's through PTAs or whether it's through attending webinars like this, they don't cost that much money. And a psychiatrist costs 2,000 rupees an hour. So it's a very simple math to me. If a school is interested, they can organize a webinar and they can have some experts come in and tell them about the subject, tell them the benefits. I mean, the main thing I'm going to get to in a moment here is what are the benefits? The benefits are immense. A happy child, better grades, lower dropout, and schools have become very competitive. They don't have to spend lakhs of rupees in advertising promotion. If they're viewed as being proactive and instituting new methods and procedures for educating the child, then God bless them. So in answer to your question, I think the answer is not as drastic as you are indicating. It's a matter of wanting to do something. We spend in schools lakhs of rupees on activities, social programs, outings, sports, theater, drama, arts. Hey, this is more important than most of it. Because if a child is not emotionally healthy, they will never be academically successful. So it starts from the house, it starts from the home, it starts from the parents, it goes to the teachers. Then when there is a groundswell, then only would the principal go to management and say, hey, we should better get serious about this. This is an important subject.
No, I do agree. This is really neat of our, and thankfully I'm associated with the school which is really working very hard. We are having a wellness class in the evening for almost till class 11, because 12th, yes, because they have their, though we want to intervene, but we are having monthly for them. And it's a very important class. When we talk about wellness, it's not only physical wellness, which we do with yoga and meditation, and I think this program will definitely equip me better. Thank you so much.
No, not at all.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think Mr. Chadda wants to ask another question.
Sure.
Good evening, Vasant. It's a good morning from my end. I'm watching your program from USA at this moment, and I really enjoying. But it's not a question which I want to ask. In fact, one of the gentlemen asked a very, very valid question to my mind. What is the difference between IQ and EQ?
Yes.
He did ask this question. And if you allow me, I would like to take 2 minutes answering this question.
Sure.
Yeah. There are 6 subtle differences, very clear difference between IQ and EQ, which I want to highlight. The first difference is that IQ will help a person to get into the job, but EQ will help the person to succeed at a job.
And to
that's
keep
one
the
difference. Yeah, succeed, sustain with the job. That's one difference. The second difference is the IQ will assess the ability to learn or understand. That's the IQ. But EQ will be the ability to use your emotions and logical skills in a better way. So the logical skills are coming from the EQ. IQ will help you to understand that. And IQ, third difference is that IQ will convince someone by giving facts. That's IQ. But EQ will convince someone by giving reasoning, logical reasoning. That's the importance of the EQ. Then IQ will get you into the job. IQ will get you succeed in the school or college, but EQ will get you succeed in your life. So it's a lifespan process. So the contribution of the IQ is 20% in success in life, and EQ contribute 80%. It's a 20-80 ratio. There's enough empirical evidence. So I thought, let me share this. They are the major difference between IQ and EQ. I hope the gentleman must be clear about this. I like the question, because this question I number of time get from people when I conduct program for the corporate world on IQ. So I thought I will share this. Thank you. Thank you for giving. Yeah.
Good clarification. Dr. Chadda is a very expert in emotional intelligence. He's a dear friend of mine. He's taking this time all the way from the United States to participate, and I'm very grateful to him.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chadda. Anybody else would like to ask any question?
I would like to add something.
Yes,
I liken EI as versus psychotherapy or psychiatry, like homeopathy and allopathy. So we have a child that is unmanageable. We have any person who is mentally unwell. Now we can go the homeopathy route, which is non-invasive, which is does not require prescription, quote, by that I mean chemical based medicines, and we can try that. If for any reason the situation is acute, it's a complete, uh, you know, their depression or what have you, then maybe yes, we should go to the available pharmaceutical solutions. So I kind of liken EI and to like it's the homeopathic solution to mental health. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Fair enough. Good analogy.
Can I button, please? I'm Rachna here.
Yeah, hi, Rachna.
Good evening to all of you. So I am a school counselor for the past 15 years or so, and I have been with the college also earlier. So EQ was first introduced in my life in maybe around 2004 when I read Daniel Goleman and his many books. So yes, like Hena ma'am over here pointed out, this is something which is required in our schools. But so I would like to just point out that though there's, it may not be coming in as per se as education of building of emotional quotient per se, but we do have what the CBSE has given us some life skill classes in which we may be talking to students about building their communication skill, how to become assertive, or how to manage their emotions, how to manage the anger. So yes, it is not happening in a continuous basis in the schools, but a lot of EQ development for students, especially the 8th class onwards, is happening in bits and pieces. What we need to do is make it a continuous and a longer process in schools. In CBSE, I'm talking about not a high-end school, a regular middle-income kind of a school. This is what my background and my information has, my experience has been. I just wanted to share that with you.
No, I agree, but I am looking for a little bit more of a structured, formal approach to dissemination of this knowledge of EQ. It's there, it's sporadic, it's in part of skill development. Somewhere you hear it in part of other mental health programs. There is no one concerted. I think it's important that we all recognize my major problem here in dealing with this is lack of education and awareness. If people become educated and knowledgeable on the value of what we are talking about, the entire world, the whole paradigm will change overnight. And so that is the problem here, is people just don't know. If I give you something for free and you don't know what it is or why you should be taking it, you will refuse. Because you don't
I think so. Yeah, yes. And therein, like you said, our role as school counselors comes in a lot because with my interaction with so many school counselors, because we keep having these meets in Delhi, most of us do make an attempt to educate the teachers and the parents. Of course, the students are there about what is EQ and how relevant is it and how it is required, and giving them tips on how to maybe build it up, help the child build it up. A few tips, of course, because it's only a half an hour, 45 minutes that we get to speak with them. But yes, I agree with you. A more consistent effort would go a long way. So I hope the CBSE is hearing you and the IB board is hearing you and the ICSC, etc., state board, that is listening to you there.
What is even more surprising is there are PhD psychiatrists, I mean thousands of them, that are on my network, and 6 years of getting a PhD in psychiatry, right? And they admit that yes, it was discussed, yes, we had a class or two, but there was no real formal emphasis on emotional health, emotional intelligence. I mean, yes, maybe emotional health, but that's a very vast topic. So it's surprising It's surprising to me that that is still the case because the curriculum is so outdated. You know, this is a phenomena relatively where people are. The learning curve that I've had in the past 4 or 5 years is stupendous. I didn't know how to emotional intelligence 5 years ago.
True, true. A lot of it depends on how much you grab it from here and there, books and other places. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachnaji.
Vasant, sir, I want, you were just quoting about homeopathy, and I want to share something with you. Sometime when we are measuring whatever the assessment tools are, or you're depending on others, but even then there is a discrepancy because what you observe, because that is something very different. At times you get a very good score, and especially with children who have high IQ, they know what to write and how to give the answers, and their assessment, I don't know the validity and how much we have to rely, because at times the ones who are scoring, it totally depends, and we all know how it functions. Now when we talk about, because homeopathy is something which I am also finding it very, very effective, especially when we are looking at the age, probably nursery to class 4 and 5, where it is when you're IQ, EQ, and SQ. I keep telling parents that these three ingredients, these are very, very important for the personality of a person. And when these three are balanced, probably the child will learn, will be happy, and will be safe also at times. So I really want to understand from you, when you were quoting about homeopathy, what do you exactly want us to understand from this when you were quoting about it?
Oh, yes, it is with a non-technical, non-clinical comment. All I am doing and is saying is, look, don't jump to prescription medication. The first sign you get of a child being, unmanageable or having any kind of mental health symptoms, don't just go to a psychiatrist and start taking prescription medication. If you do that for 6 months, you're going to be addicted to the very thing that is supposed to solve the problem in the first place. So why does everybody just simply go, the child is not, he's not performing, they're not eating, sleeping, talking, something is wrong. First step, and start money every week, go to a psychiatrist. I'm sorry, but I am a very firm believer in certain things. I don't think that is the first report.
So you want to say we have to have a structure when we are doing a referral? Maybe we'd start with the therapies and maybe step by step?
Yes, no, just learn about it. Write the book, attend webinars on YouTube alone. Sign up. You can see 50 YouTube or TEDx talks on emotional intelligence every day. Why not use what is wrong? And I'm not the only one. I'm not the last one. But my problem is people not understanding what is at stake here. And so they just ignore it. I went to a party the other day. They said, Mr. Agarwal, what do you do? And I said, I'm involved in emotional intelligence. And he said, ये क्या नई बीमारी है क्या कोई? Because this is new illness, is it? So the level of understanding. So and my heart goes out to those people. Once that parent understands that there is an alternative, a simpler, easier alternative, then they should go that first. Now, like homeopathy and allopathy. I mean, cancer cannot be cured by homeopathy, I think, but almost everything else can. So why not use emotional intelligence, not homeopathy, say, but emotional intelligence as your starting point for healthy.
Right. Thank you, Vasantji. That was very lucid. And we will just wait for some more time if there are any more questions.
Encourage everybody that has attended this webinar to please for our training and certification program. the 1 hour per week program. It'll answer a lot of the questions that are there, people who spoke and people that are simply listening. And there are a lot of programs today being offered by some big education institutions. I don't know the value comparison of what they charge and what we are and what we have and what they don't. But I would at least buy the books that I have written. They're very nominal priced, and that's a starting point. And as you start understanding the subject matter, then you will see how, like myself, I've just been fascinated, intrigued by it, and my passion is to somehow get this message across to our countrymen, to our parents, to our mothers and fathers, and to students, and to teachers, and to principals, and to administrators. It's coming. It's coming very quickly because there is a momentum growing, and my phone has not stopped ringing in the last few months, which was not the case before. So anybody else with any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Dr. Chadha, you were wanting to say something?
Manish, it's not a question, but Sanjay, it's not a question. And it's a wonder. I want to thank you. It's a wonderful listening you. If you allow me, I will just take 1.5 minutes, not more than that, to tell to the participants why high EQ is required.
Right.
Conditions which have been empirically verified. I'm not saying just on the hearsay. It's all data that I can present you whenever it's required by any. So the following are, I think you must keep in mind. Number one, when high EQ is required, when you have not achieved all you expected you would. To handle this, you require high EQ. Number two, when pressure seems to be ever present and growing on you, to handle again, you require high EQ. When you know you can do better, but you don't know how to do it.
Right.
EQ will help you. When you feel that your boss or your senior does not understand you properly. See from that angle. So it's a lifespan. When your subordinates or juniors don't seem to work and take initiative, to handle again, you require high EQ. When you feel low and don't know how to handle it, sometimes you're feeling low and then you don't know how to handle it. The high EQ will help you to understand it. When your income is not as high as others, high EQ for that. When you are not being promoted with the readiness and speed which you expect, you deserve, you're not getting that. To handle that situation, this high EQ will help you. When you have new responsibility that stretch you beyond your limits, you have limited, but the new responsibility limit is going beyond limit. It's high EQ will help you in handling that. When your performance has dropped in the recent past, you find it will help you. And lastly, when you want to think out of the box, innovative creativity is high EQ will help you. What I've given you the listed elements, they're all empirical tested, there's empirical evidence for that. I hope this will be enough for the participant. On behalf of Vasantji, I'm saying it's very important. And even I will recommend, I just heard this, the course, certificate course with Vasantji have starting, I think it's very important to get into depth of this and you can develop. There's a good news that EQ can be developed. Yes. There are methods, there are techniques over that, and it's not a static, it's a dynamic, it goes over the period. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Manish.
Dr. Chadha, I want to add something to what you said. There are 4 pillars in our life. There is family, finances, health, and the 4 pillars of our lives. If any one of the pillars begins to fall, chances are all 4 will fall.
Collapse, yeah.
EQ is the answer. Whether it's your finances, you've lost your job, whether it's your family, you have differences with your spouse, or your health is failing you. So what do you do? This is the way. This is the way. Learn how to manage your emotions. Learn how to use your emotions. learn how to understand your emotion, and learn to, and that way you will understand yourself, who you are. Once you know who you are, then the rest will all fall into place.
Yeah. The first value element is self-awareness. Then
Yes.
self-management
Right.
will come. Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much, Dr. Chadda. Thank you so much, Vasantji. In fact, I've had a few private chats. People are dropping off. We are also sort of running out of time. So I'll sort of wrap the session up. I think it was a very useful session to just understand why EQ is so important, and important to know the self, and also important, especially if I am an educator, how important it is to know my students, right from children up to college students and so on. So it's been wonderful talking to you, Vasantji. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Chadda, for your contribution also, and for
Thank you.
everybody else who participated and hung in there. We will try and make a recording of this available at a later point in time, and I will reach out to all of you. Vasantji has very magnanimously offered a reasonable discount on his book. I will sort of reach out to all of you and let you know how to go ahead and avail that discount. So thank you, everybody, and we will wrap it up here. Thank you so much.